Los Angeles. Look how much better that is. Not perfect, but look at the advances we're making in not using fossil fuels. The electric cars are not perfect, the fuel cells. You know, I'm making it my business to find out these things, because when people have hope, they start to make change. And so I don't agree. I absolutely don't agree. I think that what they're doing in Shanghai is perfect.
May I add something? Sometimes help comes from where you don't expect. For example, after the changes in Russia, when all the economy actually came to a stop and became ruined, and everyone said, this is a disaster, this is horrible, blah, blah, blah. But one good thing came out of it. The ecology became much, much better. Because for about 5 or 6 years, no factory was working. And so there was no pollution. No? The grass came back. So you never know. It's no need to set yourself on fire. Just stop working. And it will all come back.
This is something the Dutch need to learn. Because after all, you had the most beautiful landscape in Europe, the place where landscape painting began. And look at it now.
Well, a lot of people have referred this afternoon to children and grandchildren. The words have been quite frequent. May I put you the question first put by Elie Wiesel? Elie asks us if reasonable analysis, expectation, historical thought makes likely, probable, plausible that there is another Holocaust coming, or another Gulag, or another Kolyma, would you have children? Elie Wiesel very carefully asked this question. What do parents who know about this other world, or who have gone through it, what is the answer? I certainly don't know the answer, but everything we're talking about, of course, depends on whether we're moving into a period, euthanasia at one end, for example, the right to leave life freely, which I think is vitally important. The idea of life with tubes sticking in you just nauseates me, and of depending on others. We must have the right to say thank you, it's been very interesting, adieu. The other, whether there are human beings, certainly we hear of it in the Balkans, where the women who have been raped have not wanted those children, few have. That is complicated, I know. It is partly cultural, partly ritual, partly individual. No one can speak for another human being on this. But Elie's question is enormous, and it remains, certainly for the small ethnic history and minority I happen to belong to.
But what kind of question is this, George? I mean, if no one had children, then nothing would happen, either good or bad, and it would all be over. But on the other hand, these bad things are not inevitable, and who could stop it but our children? So,
of course one can stop it. One is a free human being. Elie decided, and there are others around him, many survivors, decided not to have children.
But he teaches, so he has loads of children in that sense. I mean, children are the people that you devote your effort towards, and your intellectual and moral and
Would you
emotional
put them
effort.
Into a world where there is a reasonable expectation that they are doomed?
Well, why does he go around giving lectures then? Why does he talk to people and try to change their mind? Why does he tell you this?
Well,
no, but I mean, look, he hasn't dropped out of the human race, so whether he has biological children or not, he has children all over the world. He's trying to change the future.
Whatever,
right.
That it's he or somebody else who asks.
No, but I mean, if he really thought things were completely hopeless, then why would he go around trying to change the world?
I'm not asking. The question of having children is a gamble. It's a gamble on hope. It's a gamble on futurity. And there are those, just asking the question, who may think it's a real question, who may not take that gamble.
Surely the answer to your question, George, is a variation of what Martha has just said, that you know, that your children are precisely the ones who are going to make things better. The worst thing to do is to leave it to the children of those others who haven't even seen the possibility that you have seen. So you're under an obligation to have children once you've had this vision.
Aren't you glad about unplanned pregnancy? Otherwise children would never have a chance. It's so terrific that they still insist on being born whether we like it or not. Yes! It's hope, you see. Spring's eternal.
Error.
I can't really imagine that knowledge could lead to the end of hope, except in cases like knowing that the Romans would enslave your children, knowing some concrete prediction. But, you know, could there be such a thing as religious or philosophical knowledge which was, you know, strong enough to take away hope? I mean, surely our projects of knowledge are in the service of our hopes. You can't, as it were, use knowledge to trump hope.
What if hope is a matter of biochemistry?
Well, what then? Why not embrace it? But no, I want to get back to Kant. You wanted, I mean, and Kant, I think, was very good on this question, because he says even in a scientific and technical area, he says the fact that everyone thinks it will never be done doesn't mean at all that it won't ever be done. And he says, look at hydrostatic balloons, which is lovely, because you think, well, then they thought that couldn't be done. Well, look at what we have done. And then he says in a moral area, it's all the more pressing that we don't give up this hope that just because world peace hasn't been achieved, that it might not be achieved. And in fact, we have an obligation to accept that hope and use the hope to motivate us to bring that about. I think that's true.
Surely there's nothing new about Wiesel's question. I mean, people have been asking that throughout recorded history. Nobody has ever come up with, you know, an answer or even an intelligent discussion of the question.
Oh,
It's a good thing that children have parents rather than the other way around.
There are communities which Macedon others. There are communities in Roman Spain, the famous case. There have been communities which killed their own children first to spare them from something much worse. There is much worse than death, and this has not been pronounced at all today. This business about the worse of life is perhaps a highly exaggerated notion.
Sure, if this program went on for another 5 hours, that would be perhaps worse than death, wouldn't it? Or maybe 10 hours.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.